Sami Zayn sat down with Ariel Helwani on Ariel Helwani Meets, and they had a good, almost hour-long conversation, mostly about the Bloodline. This wasn't to get to know Sami Zayn thing, or, anything about his past, or El Generico, nothing like that. This was the Bloodline interview. And Ariel asked him all about the storyline from, when it started to develop. We got we got some information on the early stages of it, how Sami said that this was his idea that he had been thinking about by this time last year. So by Royal Rumble of last year, he was already thinking, he was becoming kind of chummy with Roman backstage and kind of already getting those gears going. They've been talking backstage while they hang out about how they might be able to work with each other on camera. And Sami kind of started to develop this idea to work with the Bloodline, though nobody expected this thing to take off the way it did. I think it's inarguable that this is the biggest storyline of 2022. Might end up being the biggest storyline of 2023 before it's all said and done. But for the longest time, people were against Sami Zayn until he started to win people over. It was kind of looked at least by a lot of people, that this was sort of like, why is this goofball in with this serious storyline, right? Sami's a clown. He's he works with Knoxville in a fucking giant mousetrap match. You know what I mean? Sami's a goofball, and the Bloodline were dead serious, but it just fucking works. The way that they're doing it, it's fucking beautiful. But it wasn't always that way, and not everybody had that opinion. I know Ric Flair, even on his podcast, was very outspoken multiple times about Sami Zayn. Like, I just don't think it fits in with the Bloodline. Other people have said that as well. Interestingly enough, according to Sami Zayn in this clip here, who else in the Bloodline might have been apprehensive about letting Sami Zayn in and adding a comedic element to this serious storyline? And as you can tell by the thumbnail, it's Paul Heyman. Check out this clip.
Obviously, there was a big part of the storyline where some of the members didn't want you in, and I know that's on TV, but was there any part of you that felt like you had to earn their trust just to be a part of it? Is that the kind of relationship you have with them, or did you already have this great relationship and, I'm making something out of it based off of what we saw on TV?
I mean, if I'm being brutally honest here, maybe Heyman is the one I felt like I had to convince.
Interesting. Why is that?
Well, because I think he's old school. And Roman's his guy, and Brock was his guy, and he is very familiar with the top of the card. Mm-hmm. And for him to be able to buy into me being a part of the act that's at the top of the card, I didn't want him to I don't want him to be one of those guys that's like grabbing Roman and going like, look, can't work with him. He just did this stuff with Knoxville or whatever. Right. So I know Roman knows I'm pretty good. That's why he said what he said in that interview. Right. I know the Usos think I'm pretty good, and I think all these guys are great. There's like a mutual respect. We're peers. Mm-hmm. With Heyman, it's a bit more like, he's more strategic about things that I wouldn't think of. Or he looks at the business in ways that sometimes I wouldn't look at. You know what I mean? So if there was anyone that I thought wouldn't be on board, that would have to get convinced, I thought maybe it would be Heyman.
Do you feel that still?
Not as far as convincing, but as far as him viewing things differently from me, sure.
You think you've won him over?
I think I've won the fans over, which is what he cares about. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
That one surprised me. It really did. I would have thought Paul Heyman strikes me as a guy that gets it. He has a very solid understanding of everything in the wrestling business. To this day, he's one of the brightest minds you'll ever find in the business. Give me a booking team with Paul Heyman and Jim Cornette on it, and fucking, you know what I mean? It's fucking wonderful. The brain on this guy. So it really surprised me that he was apprehensive about letting Sami Zayn get involved with the Bloodline. That Sami had to kind of prove himself to Heyman. Now, maybe it's because Sami Zayn tends to rub a lot of people the wrong way backstage. Even in this interview, like, this is what you see is what you get with Sami Zayn. He's not playing a character. Sure, he's over the top to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Of course, everybody's dialed up to 11, right? That's what you do. You just, you're yourself cranked up is where you get over the most. And that's pretty much exactly where Sami Zayn's at. He's a bit, he's like, he can be like nails on a chalkboard sometimes, you know, good in small doses maybe. But, and that's just me, but I've heard a lot of other people say that too. And I've heard Sami say it, you know, he knows it. He's self-aware at the very least. But this was just a very revealing interview about the Bloodline in general, and that Paul Heyman it took a while for Heyman to warm up to the fact that to let Sami get so close and involved with this. And another interesting thing about it is Sami talked about, like, the politics at the main event is something different. You know, he made his exact phrase was something to the effect of, I felt like I got called up to the main roster all over again. Because you get into the WWE system and you learn the politics. I'm sure at NXT level there probably wasn't much. Once you get called up to the main roster, especially under Vince, oh boy, is it a different game. And you got to try to navigate that fucking world. Not going to be easy for you. And obviously Sami's not, you know, he's, like I said, he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. He's very outspoken. He talks a lot. He's sort of obnoxious, but it comes from passion. You know, he even said in this interview, he's like, yeah, I mean, I talk over people all the time, and like, he gets it. He's self-aware. I'm not making this shit up or just pulling it out of my ass because I don't like him. I like Sami Zayn a lot. I think he's brilliant. I think this is the greatest storyline I've seen in a long time. You know, I think last year, 2021, was MJF and Punk. That was a fantastic storyline, but this just blows that shit out of the water. This is so good. But I can absolutely see why the idea of adding a comedic element, this guy that just got done wrestling Johnny Knoxville in a giant mouse trap and fucking doing the whole jackass shtick with everybody, you know. Everybody's slipping on banana peels and just, it's comedic. It's clown shoes. But Sami has made this storyline beautiful. And the way that they've dragged it out and let it play out, that's another thing Sami said in this interview. Highly recommend you watch the whole thing. I have it linked down in the description below. You know, Sami said that Triple H is just kind of letting it breathe, you know, letting it goes day to day. And he hasn't revealed anything as far as how the storyline is going to play out. Ariel did ask. You know, Ariel was like, I think it's almost getting to the point where the fans will revolt if you don't win the Royal Rumble. Sami's like, I don't think that's the case. I don't either. I think that the Rumble belongs to Cody. And I think whatever they're doing with Sami in the Bloodline doesn't lead to Sami versus Roman at the main event of WrestleMania. I just don't see it. I see it maybe more as Kevin Owens and Sami against the Usos, perhaps. Or maybe if there's a pay-per-view between the Rumble and Mania, I could see Sami getting a title shot there and then going to Mania to do the tag title match with the Usos. But, you know, Sami he's kind of cocky here. He was like, you know, if that was the storyline, I could do it. Yeah. Because Ariel had asked him, you know, can you be the face of the company? And Sami was like, yeah, absolutely. I could probably do it in my sleep. But he's also self-aware enough to know not for the long term, that WWE has a very specific type, you know, and that Sami just physically does not fit that mold as your long-term world champion. But, you know, you look back in the past, look at Mick Foley when he won the title. You can swap the title to a guy that is not your poster child for a little bit, for the benefit of a storyline. Switch it over to Sami, has a run with it for a month or two, and then drops it again to somebody else. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with doing that. So I could absolutely see that happening. I don't see it happening before Mania. I think at this point, if The Rock's not going to be there, I think the inevitable endpoint is Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns. Cody dethrones Roman, and the Cody Rhodes era begins. We got 2 belts, though, so maybe Cody only gets a shot at one and Roman continues to hold the other. Who knows? I have no fucking idea how any of this plays out, but that's the fun of it. I'm along for the ride. I like this long-term storytelling. We didn't get this under Vince. This is Triple H shit. And, some people, I see some people complaining online, more for the Bray Wyatt one, but I've saw it for the Bloodline too, about how long this is going on and stuff. And it's like, bro, long-term storytelling. Don't have TikTok brain, If you ever watch a soap opera, their storylines develop like they're daily shows. Their storylines barely move. They're snail's pace. Like hardly anything happens in any episode. Then you get a big cliffhanger on the Friday to have to come back and watch it Monday, where nothing happens again until Friday. So just sit back and enjoy the ride. But this was a fantastic interview with Sami Zayn. Very revealing. I love that it was very focused on the Bloodline, and we got to hear a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Sami was very candid. He was open. He wasn't kayfabing brother. He didn't reveal just everything. He didn't tell you where it's going or anything like that, but he was very candid, having to earn the approval of Paul Heyman and how everything came about and his relationship with Roman, and a lot of really good shit there. So highly recommend you go check it out, and let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next. Hey, thanks for checking out that clip. Don't forget to check out other clips here on the channel. And while you're there, throw a like, throw a subscribe. And don't forget to check out full episodes each and every Sunday of the Pro Wrestling Podcast.